I'll put a plug in for them. Jan Harzan. Jan's been doing a great job for Mutual UFO Network and running that out of California. We really appreciate California and all they're doing, and that's probably one of the biggest groups for people that want to put in their a place to put in your call-ins. And here he comes. Okay, good. Thank goodness, 254. Okay, and I don't know if Ronnie wants to give out his number or his wife's, but now she's going to be coming on, Mary Jane Dawson, because she does DNA and genealogy and be helping us with that. But he just got back. All right, we're back on. We got about 30 minutes here. Ronnie, you back?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me? Yay.
Yes,
I don't know what happened because it wasn't on my end. I kept the show going. I didn't cut it off. All right. Do you remember where you dropped off?
Yes, I remember. Yes,
okay, good. And then you've only got about 30 minutes. When we get up to your show that we put on here, that they'll be able to hear the last. I know you're working on up because we can come back. Every week we'll keep running your story till you run out, and then we can put other people on. But also, if you can, at least the last. We only got 30 minutes, left, but at least if you can get all the way up to the end of the show, we'll keep them on the cliffhanger, is we're going to talk about your latest abduction and how it ties into what we wrote up. Remember, you wrote it up, and I asked you if I could use it, so you can be a little bit of an investigative reporter journalist, too. So remember at the last to leave time for transport to another world and got my physical conscious into clone for the first time February 2020. So be sure and get that part in. But if you got to go into a bunch of details, remember that paragraph and then send me a paragraph every week of what you're going to talk about. But I'm just telling you to be sure on this episode 1 to put that last paragraph in there. Lead up to that, right?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I'm a mute. Back to Series 1, Episode 1 with Ronnie Dawson, Paranormal. You ain't going to believe this. Okay.
Thank you, Teresa. Right there where I left off at, there's these lights circling over this whole area, and I'm sitting here watching these things, and they're spiraling downward. And I'm thinking, well, here's another photo opportunity to see what this is. And these lights, there was one of them that was a real weird flickering. It was like it's not a sequencing light like you would see on an aircraft. It had a very odd flash to it, and that would seem to be leading this thing. And anyways, this thing come down, and I went around the back side of my truck to get a better picture, and I stopped the loading process, and so everything was ready. This thing started coming in. It looked like it was coming right at me, like it was going to pass right over the top of me. Not that high in the air, probably a little bit less than 1,000 feet. And the first thing is I noticed the sky started turning like a fog bank. The color of the sky started turning like it was getting foggy in this area. Then all of a sudden I could see this flickering light that I'd been watching come out of this fog bank, and it was something on the tip of this big arrow. It's like an arrow-pointed tip of a UFO, and it was something hot reacting to the air flowing over it. No lights whatsoever. This thing looked like solid rock coming out of the fog, and it looked like a spear tip. And something hot on the end of it was flickering as it was passing through the air, and this thing started passing right over the top of my head, and it just kept coming, and it kept coming, and it got bigger and bigger. It was probably 100 yards on both sides of me. If it would have fell out of the sky, it would have crushed me, the truck, the whole location. And this thing took 2 or 3 seconds to pass over me. It had meteor marks, it had burn marks, it had crater marks on the bottom of it. It looked like solid rock. And it looked like a meteor. And I thought, my God, is this just a meteor? And this thing was going right over the top of me. I thought, man, I'm fixing to die when this meteor hits the ground over here. Well, this thing, it looked like a meteor, and it looked like I guess that comet that came through here, that Omahu or whatever. Yeah, it looked like that. Except it looked like it was a big V-shaped thing. And I seen that it wasn't a meteor because it started slowing down. And I could see these huge pipe-looking openings coming out of the bottom of it. And I thought, well, this thing started slowing down. And it came to a stop. And the first part that it passed over me started going straight up in the air. And this thing, and then all of a sudden, this thing was going up in the air like a skyscraper now. And then all of a sudden, this thing just shot off so fast that you could see the fog and the smoke being swept off the surface of it. You could see the air being disrupted around it and swirling as this thing took off. And it took off so fast, like it was a huge rock floating in the sky, and all of a sudden it was taking off faster than a jet could go. And this thing took off so fast, I grabbed my phone up, and I thought, man, if it keeps going like this, I'm going to miss it altogether. And I thought it's gonna get out of here before I could even get the camera up. And I pointed the eye of the camera at this thing, and I just pushed the button, and the video started running on this thing. And I caught the left. It was a V-shaped craft, a mile long. Each half of the V was probably half a mile, and I caught the left half of that V on that video footage, and we've been analyzing it for years and looking at the still frame images of it, and man, there ain't nothing on this thing looks like it ever been touched by human hand. We found creatures on it, we found alien architecture, and this thing, it looked like it went away from me, and then it banked and came back to me, and it looked like a city built on the surface of this thing, and it almost looked completely alien. It didn't look like anything we could ever recognize. There were structures on it, but it didn't look like any kind of modern civilized structures. It looked more like something you see in the bottom of the ocean or something, like coral. It looked like a coral reef or something like that had been pulled out of the ocean that was flying around the north central Texas sky. And this thing, it started coming back. It banked away from me, then it banked to where I could see the top of it, and I actually caught the video of the top of it. When it banked, it was coming back at me. So you get a good look at what's on this thing, and I've got pictures of that and a video of that. We've seen just some of the oddest stuff you could ever imagine on this thing, and we've been trying to explain it, and we don't have a clue what it was, but it's some of the weirdest UFO footage I think ever recorded by anyone in human history that I know of. And this thing came back, and it banked around this location. And when it took off at a 45-degree angle, and then went from a huge craft flying over the trees that was a mile long to just some dots moving across the sky, just like I had seen earlier. And it probably didn't take 2 seconds to get to that point. And it took off with such blazing speed that you just had to see it to believe it. It was just amazing. It was an amazing sight. And it's too bad everybody in the world couldn't see it. And I seen this, and I've been reporting on this, and we've been analyzing the footage, and that's where a lot of my pictures and stuff come from, is from this huge thing that we've zoomed in, and it's not great pictures because it's taken at night of a moving object with a camera back in 2011, but I guarantee you this is some of the most crazy, amazing footage that you'll ever see if you want to spend the time investigating it, and it has been vetted. People have looked hard at it, and they know that it's not been photoshopped, it's not been manipulated, and it certainly hasn't been explained. But anyway, that's not where the story ends. The story keeps going. Like it was about, I'd seen these things, but I never had contact. We made a UFO video of seeing this thing, and in my house was just these video anomalies, things flying around my house, like almost like ghost things in my house. My house had never been haunted, but all of a sudden, after seeing these aliens and stuff, we seen like mist, like free roaming vapors moving around my house, and I've got some footage of that. And it was in August 2017. I come home from working nights, and this is the first time I met these things. And I came home and I went to bed and I was absolutely asleep. And all of a sudden I wasn't even dreaming. All of a sudden I started dreaming, I thought, and there was these two women. They had me by the arms. They was pulling on me, and what it was, these two ETs pulled my living conscious out of my sleeping body for a conversation, and they started apologizing about disturbing my rest, and they told me they were from another world and they needed to have a conversation, and the conversation basically was that these guys have been watching us, and the people of their world are demanding to meet the people of my world, and they want to talk about how to go about doing this, and basically, and I was like, really, is this true? And my wife went walking through the bedroom, and my sleeping body was laying there in bed, and I see my wife just clear as day. She said, "This is where we watch you from," and I could see everything moving about the room. I could see my wife walking in and out of their bedroom, and I'm having a conversation with these things, and they can't see us. My wife couldn't see us, but I could see her, the clothes she was wearing, I could see the sun shining around the windows at 9 o'clock in the morning when this all occurred. I could see everything about the house. I could see my body sleeping in the bed. And it was just the oddest thing you could ever imagine. And anyway, I was sitting there talking to these things, and they wanted to know how. And there was like two females. There was one looked like a leopard. She had a cat's mouth instead of a human mouth. The other one looked very human, tall, skinny, athletic. And they even pointed out that the clothing they were wearing said our world is already affected to the world because they've seen some of our clothing and they fell in love with it, and they've used the fabrics from their world to make it, and they've already, some of our clothing designs have already become popular in their world just from watching ours. And I asked them, I said, I've always heard if you ever get the chance to talk to E.T., ask them how they got here. And so I did. I said, can you show me how they got here? And they instructed me to walk. I said, yeah, see, just said, go through the wall and you'll be able to see our world. My world, she said, not our world. And she said, you'll be able to see my planet. And I'm going, what? I thought maybe I'd see a ship or something like that. But no, she instructed me to walk through the wall. I had to walk through this picture. This glass was going to hit me in the face. And I was afraid it was going to cut my face, so I was going really slow. And she was like, hurry up, go, man, go. You're like, they were in a hurry. So they had me walk through the world. I fell into outer space in some place, some universe, somewhere. I guess they had placed a Stargate over my bedroom, and I had walked out of this thing into God knows where. I could see this alien planet. I could see a black hole in the sky, like the galactic center, with planets being sucked into it. And it just blew me away, and I was at zero gravity doing this head flip, and finally they pulled me back into the room. And then they wanted a genetic sample from me. I said, yeah, I'll give you whatever you need, And so I give them a genetic sample. We'll maybe go into that later. It takes too long to tell, but anyway, they got a genetic sample, and from what their conversation indicated, they were going to make a clone. They needed genetic samples from everybody, like they're trying to make some kind of a genetic code where we could be transferred into clone bodies, but the clone bodies will be able to accept this physical consciousness of anyone instead of just the one person that they were making it for. Like when they made my clone, I'm the only one that can use it, but they're wanting to build a genetic code and get the physical sample. They wanted to get biological samples from everybody to make some kind of super code where you could transfer many people into one clone. It's what it seemed like to me. This is all very over my head, trying to understand how this is all going to work. And I know one of the things they told me is that I need to tell my genetic people here that we should modify our genetic code from a double helix to a triple helix. And I didn't have any clue what she was talking about. I had to get on the Google and research that, and I found out that's our genetic model for DNA here. And she goes, we'll be able to cure most of our own diseases, if we could just do this. And but like I said, so I've passed it on, and they also told me they said like one of the first rules of contact is when you meet us for the first time, tell your people not to. Said only physical contact after physical permission is given and received. In other words, before you grab them, shake your hands or hug them, they want you to ask permission first. It's what it seems like to me. It's like the first rule of conduct, and they wanted me to pass that on to everyone. Well, anyway, when it come time to leave, they had me. They said just lay back on your body, and I laid back on my body. Nothing happened. And I said, look, I was thinking to myself, y'all ain't very good at this, And she said, well, get back up. She said, just leap on your body. And when I stood back up and I leaped on my body, it felt like I fell 10 feet. I woke up. I woke up in the bed, and the room looked identically like it did just a few minutes earlier when I was talking to them. And I had a feeling they were still there looking at me. I just couldn't see them now. I was in my physical body seeing the same thing my wife saw when she walked in the room, which is nothing. And I thought, my God, And anyway, when I looked at the wall, the part of the wall that I walked through, there was a stud in the wall went through my right shoulder. I remember I had to struggle through it. It was when you walk through physical matter in this place, it's like a ghost ram. I could feel this stud in the wall moving through my shoulder. I checked it with the stud finder, and right there where I went through the wall, there's a stud exactly where my right shoulder would hit. And I wondered, and this happened in August of 2017, so. There hasn't been a whole lot happened since then. I thought, well, maybe they got my lights, maybe they're done when they haven't. I've seen some UFO lights, but I hadn't really seen anything